Hello and welcome to Hexed Encountered. I'm Joe, and in this video we will be doing the promised example of play. Basically, it's not going to be a really long playthrough or anything like that, but I did want to, as I mentioned at my January game plan video, that we were going to do some Wilderness War using the CDG Solo System from GMT. You can see here, this is one of the cards. There's a red card as well, which we will use for the British. This yellow card will be for the French. So if you're unfamiliar with the CDG Solo System, I'll give you kind of a brief intro on it. Basically, you have five card slots, and then you can have cards remaining for your hand. So in Wilderness War, typically you'll have 8 cards in your hand. There are some events that will maybe increase or decrease that number for each side, depending. But in the CDG Solo System, you have 5 cards down and everything starts face down. So basically the gist of what the system is trying to do is kind of limit your knowledge of what the hands are so that you can still have your decision space in terms of what to do when a card is turned face up. But at the same time, you don't have perfect knowledge of everything. So you can still have kind of that back and forth trumping an opponent's card kind of situation in the gameplay, even though you're playing by yourself. So as you can see, we've got 8 cards remaining, and the max hand size will stay on 8 until or unless we have an event. It's possible for the French to go to 7. It's possible for the British to go to 9, etc., based on events. So what I've set up here is the 1755 scenario, which is actually the beginning of the campaign, the full campaign game, or there is also just like a shorter one that runs through, I think, 1759, which is the end of the Annus Mirabilis scenario here, which is what we saw in the gameplay example videos I did before this. We did the early and late seasons of 1757. So in this one, we are going to do the early season for, we'll do part of the early season, probably not the whole thing. I don't want this to be super long. Just kind of want to give an example of how the CDG Solo System works with this particular game, and then we'll move on and do some of the other solitaire stuff that I wanted to get to in January, since we're quickly approaching the middle of the month, and I've really only done Wilderness War stuff and a little bit of the Gettysburg PC game, the PC adaptation of the Mark Herman game. So if you haven't seen those videos and are interested, they are on the channel. So with the CDG Solo System, and this is number 2, you get cards basically that outline how to play the game with the system. And this one obviously is Wilderness War. Play sheet is by Chris Crane. And it goes through what happens when you have this die here, which does not have your normal 6-sided numbers, 1 through 6 on it. It's got various letters and symbols. And so you use what's kind of in here for each result as you roll it. And that will determine which cards get turned face up and so on and so forth. And then, of course, once you play a card, the cards remaining will go down. You refill the grid, and then ultimately at some point you'll run through all 8 cards just like you would in a 2-handed game, and you move on. So this particular game sheet is fairly straightforward. This isn't a game that requires a whole lot of things that are unusual for this system. So we will get started here. As I mentioned, we have a yellow card and a red card. The red card is right over here beside it. I just have it out of the shot right now. They are basically identical. And you'll see the red card here in a moment when we go to draw a card for the British. So this system is not a bot. You still have to make decisions on what to do with the cards. It just kind of limits what cards you see. So again, it keeps some fog of war in there, for lack of a better term, for both sides, so that you don't have perfect knowledge, which is always kind of an issue when you're playing a card-driven game, as you probably already know. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to roll this die, which is called the Fate die. So I'm just going to throw it in my tower, and I got the C, less than, and 2 exclamation points here. So it's card C or lowest face-up ops card, or exclamation points. So if not already face up, flip the card in slot C. Now the French go first. Here is slot C. So we flip this over. And we have British Ministerial Crisis. So we can play card C or the lowest value face up ops card in A, B, D, or E for any allowable purpose, or discard an event card. If there are multiple lowest valued op cards, and by that they mean the number here in the corner, which in this case is a 3. So basically with this card, since we only have the one card, we play that card. So we can play it for the ops value, or we can play it for the event. So we can say, let's play it for the event just for this example. The British player must discard 1 British Regulars, Highlanders, Light Infantry, Troop Transports, or Victories in Germany card if he has any in his hand. Now, we don't know what he has in his hand. The British card is right over here with his 5 cards that are already there and face down. So I do not know what those cards are. Well, here's the thing, okay? Forced discard cards, number 36 and 37. This is 37, the British Ministerial Crisis, or Crises. These cards can force the inactive side to discard a card, either randomly or a specific type of card. When that occurs, discard the card as the event instructs. Reduce the card's remaining marker on the inactive side and replace the empty space with a card from the draw pile face down. The problem we have here is, again, and at the bottom it says, if it is a random discard, only face-up cards on the display can be discarded. We do not have any face-up cards for the British yet. Therefore, we basically cannot play this for the event, and we would have to play it for its value. So in this case, since I have to use it for the value, which is 3, I'm going to activate 3 separate units. And, well, 2 of them will be right here. I'm going to activate my one of my couriers and a drilled unit that are at Crown Point. And we're just going to move down to Ticonderoga with the idea of starting to build a fort perhaps in a future activation. So that would be 2. And then for the other one over here, we have another courier. And I think what I'll do with him is try to take him maybe in this direction so that we can get to maybe Harris's Ferry here and maybe do some raiding or something like that. So he can move 6. We can go 1, 2, and then stop here in Allegheny Central, because you have to stop in a mountain space. So that ends the French activation, and we take the card that was on the on the CDG Solo System card and remove it, and we'll draw a card and refill here in a moment, and we'll adjust the track. So that would be what you would do, or one of the things you can do. Again, I'm not really trying to do a whole lot play-wise here, just kind of showing what the choices would end up being when you use the system here. Okay, so up here we see, here's the empty slot. The cards remaining will move down to 7. The max hand would stay the same. We draw a new card, keep it face down, and put it in the spot. And that's it. And then we would move over to the British, and we do the same thing. We take our die, we roll it, and we get CDE this time. So again, if we check our sheet, CDE down here, if not already face up, flip all face down cards in slot C, D, and E. So you're not always going to only be able to choose from one. And then it kind of went to the top here. Play card C, D, or E for any allowable purpose, and then fill in the player card slot from the draw deck face down. So we're going to flip this guy, and this guy. All right, so now this one is a French event, so we could only play it for its value. This one is a British event, so we can play it for the event. And this one is a both sides event, so we can play it for either. So, in looking at these events, with the Rangers one here in the middle, we can place a Rangers unit at a fortification or restore 2 Rangers to full strength. We don't have any Rangers that are not at full strength currently, but we do have some Rangers that we could put out in some of our locations. We have an empty fort at Hudson Carry South, actually, which might not be a bad idea. Indians desert. We can eliminate up to 2 unbesieged enemy Indian units from any one space. That might also prove useful. The French have some Indian allies on the board. One is in Montreal, or 2 of them are in Montreal, and the other is in Ohio Forks. So let's weaken Rigaud's forces here. We're going to play this Indians desert for the event. So we're going to replace that card with one that's face down. And we're going to move this down. And Montreal is under Rigaud, who's right here. So he has 2 Indian units here as well. He has the Abenaki and the Conaga. I always have a hard time with this. Caughnawaga. You'd think I'd get it. I've been playing this for a little bit now. So those 2 go away, right? And then we would just go and we would repeat the process on the French side. So we'll do another round or 2, and then we'll wrap it up, because like I said, I don't want this to be really long. I just really want to give you an idea of how the card, the CDG Solo System, impacts gameplay. And the game itself plays just like it did in the 2 play examples I did previous to this. That's why I don't really feel like I need to worry overly much about actually playing the game, just kind of showing the decision space here with the CDG Solo System. Okay, so let's roll for the French now. And they get the same thing they got before. So it's C, or the lowest face-up ops card. So we're going to flip C since we don't have anything else that's face-up. And this time we get Bastions Repaired. Replace a Siege 1 or Siege 2 marker. Again, we do not have a Siege 1 or Siege 2 marker on the map anywhere. So we're going to play this for its activation value, for the value. And we will replace that, and this will go down to 6. Now, because the ops value of that card was just 1, I'm going to place a fort. I'm going to build a fort here. And the way this works, I think we did this in the other one, but this is an under construction. Forts take 2, basically 2 activations to build. So you put the pickaxe side down first, and then when you do it again, it flips over. And you can do as many of these as you have ops points for in your card. So if we had 3, we could, in theory, do 3 forts, 1 action of each, though. You can't like say, I'm going to spend 2 and I'm going to skip the pickaxe and flip it face up. No, that's not how it works. So you also need a drilled troop to do it. So we're going to put that here under this, and we're going to build Fort Ticonderoga there for the French, so that we can continue to kind of come down here and then eventually maybe infiltrate, speaking from the French side, of course, try and infiltrate down the Hudson maybe and get to like Albany and so on. The British do have a little bit of stuff going on in here. So that would be the end of the French, and then we go back to the British. Now the British side, we obviously have 2 cards we already have face up. So, but we're going to roll again here. This time we get ABC, and what that does is, if not already face up, flip all face down cards in slots A, B, and C, and then we can play A, B, or C for any purpose. Fill in the played card slot from the draw deck. Okay, so we're going to basically only be able to flip A and B because C is already flipped. And we've got an ambush, and we've got British colonial politics. So that's a good event for the British, because we can actually move the provincial assemblies track by 1 if we wanted to in a favorable location. So that would move from supportive, where we can have a max of 4 southern and 10 northern provincial units on the map. And if you don't remember, this would be a provincial unit over here. This guy right here is a provincial unit from New York. That is a northern provincial unit. I believe all the states, New York, Connecticut, New Hampshire, etc., Massachusetts, the ones you would think of as New England, basically, along with New York and New Jersey are north. Pennsylvania, Maryland, and Virginia, I think, are the 3 southern. They're in the southern department. So let's play this, And I won't show the box because I showed it in the other video, but basically you have 3 levels. You have enthusiastic, which is unlimited provincials, no stingy provincial assembly. So we're going to move it to that. We started in supportive, which I just read. And if the French play it, they can move it in the other direction and down to what is reluctant, where you can only have 2 southern and 6 northern provincial units on the map. And you can't play raised provincial regiments. So we replace our card. We slide our cards remaining down to 6. And I think you've got the gist of how this works. So you can see that it really, in this case here, even though D is face up and we know what it is, we can't play it. So you get a little bit of a limitation on the stuff you can do. And it also reveals information to you at a slower pace so that you're not seeing all 8 cards for both sides. So this one, like I said, is a fairly straightforward adaptation of the system. There isn't a whole lot in here special. You got some special rules for the surrender card, which is basically this just outlines what it says in the rule book about the surrender card, that the deck has to be reshuffled according to this over here. When you have random cards to select, you can roll for it based on here, number of face-up cards, and then you get a determination of what you can roll. What else? The forced discard we already saw, taking the opponent's card. Battle response cards, because in the game, when you're fighting a battle, if you have a card such as like ambush here, you can play that in response. Anything that's got a brown border on it is a response card, so you can play that in battle. And you can also play it for events. But there is a chance that fate might not allow it. When the inactive side would play a response card, roll the fate die. If the double exclamation point result is rolled, the inactive side's response is blocked by fate. Otherwise, they may continue on in playing their response card. Be sure to decrease the card's remaining marker for every response card played and refill the empty card slot from the draw deck. Face down. We always put the cards out face down. So let's do one more and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, so back to the French side. We're going to roll our die again. And we get DE this time. Now, as you might guess, when you get these kind of letter ones here, you're basically flipping the 2 cards, or 3, if you get one of these 2, in those spots. You can play either of those cards for any allowable purpose, and then you fill the slot. So in this case, we have D and E. And we have 2 French events. So we have French regulars and Western Indian Alliance, and you can play that if you have a fort at Ohio Forks, which we do. So in this event, we could play this and we would get our orange, and or if you have a fort at Niagara, which we also do, blue-orange striped Indian units totaling half a die roll rounded up, or a full roll if the French victory points are greater than 4. Right now the victory points are at 0. So that would not apply. Place units at their settlements. For every 1 you could place, you may instead restore 2 to full. Again, that's if they have taken battle damage, which they have not. So our tribes would be some like the Shawnee, the Mingo, the Delaware, and then you have the blue-orange would be these guys right here. You can only see the top of the box, but that's the Ojibwa, the Ottawa, the Potawatomi, and the Huron. So we would have to roll our die. Let me take the fate die out for the moment. We'll roll our blue die for the French here. And we get a 3. So 3 rounded up. You have it rounded up. It's a 2. So they would get 2. So for this one, we're going to take the Mingo. And they go on their settlement, which is right here. And the Shawnee, let's go right here. Somewhat adjacent to Ohio. Well, they are adjacent because you have the river connection here. Adjacent to Ohio Forks. So, kind of build a little bit of a force in this direction so we can move that away towards the Virginia, Maryland, Pennsylvania area of the map. All right, so we're going to spend then our Western Indian Alliance card. That gets discarded. We draw a new card and put it in that slot. So here's the card. You put it in face down on the D slot. Their cards remaining move to 5, and we reset to do the British. Okay, so we're going to, again, roll our fate die. And we get AB. So AB works just like DE, where you flip over A and B, and you can play either one. So we will flip A, which is face down. B is not. And we get Field Works, which is a response card that can be played before battle if you have drilled troops. Now, it's only a 1 activation, as is Ambush, which is also a response card. I would assume that we're going to play that for its activation value. And looking at the map, the British don't have a ton on map at the moment. And we can't play something like that where we could pull in a Rangers unit. We're a little limited in what we can do with a 1. I don't have any drilled troops anywhere that it does not already have a fortification. So we can't do construction, so I would have to activate somebody to move them. So that's what we will do. Okay, so we have Shirley here in Albany, who's a 2. Under him, though, is Johnson, who is in Shirley's box on the map. So here's Johnson. As you can see, he's got a 1 for initiative, which makes him very easy to activate. And he's got the ability to command Indians free. So you can see that on his counter. At the bottom, it says M and I. And we have 2, as I mentioned, we have 2 Mohawks that were in that hex for Shirley, because Johnson is under Shirley. So these are free for him. So he has 3 command, but they would not count towards his 3 command. So he can take them for free. And then he could also take 3 of the other units that are in that box, which are all provincials. We have a Rhode Island, a Connecticut, a New Hampshire, and 2 Massachusetts. So he's going to take 2 of those. We'll take Rhode Island and Connecticut. And he's going to go from Albany, and he's going to move river travel to Hudson, carry south. And then he can go either to north or to Wood Creek. We'll go Wood Creek so that we don't have to do boat, land. I forget if you're allowed to combine. You might not be able to. But I think it's okay to go 1, 2, and then move in here for 3. And have ourselves a fight. So we're going to have a battle. Now, to do that, we spent this card, which was in slot A. So we discard that and we put it here, which I know you can't see. It's off map, or off camera, right? Rather. That brings us to 5. Now we have an ambush card as well, and this is Wilderness. And we do have auxiliaries. But it can't be played if the enemy has a fort, light, or infantry, or more auxiliary than you do. So we have a French force here that is 1 unit of Marine, a Marine detachment, and 1 Carror. They're going to try to avoid battle. So the way that works is really simple. If they had a leader, they would get his tactics rating as a die roll bonus, but they don't. So we're going to roll 1 die. If it's a 4 or higher, they can avoid, and they would move. And it's not, so they do have to fight. All right. So now we have this ambush card, which says play before battle in wilderness or mountain. And this is wilderness, right? And I just read this, so you know we can't play it if the enemy has a fort. Now, I don't think this counts as a fort because it's not completed. So it offers no benefit to them. So but we do have the rule here with this with the CDG Solo System that fate might not let us. We are the active side. Oh, we can play it. It's the inactive that has to roll for fate. So the active side may play a face-up response card for any legal purpose to supplement their main action. Oh wait, we're doing a battle though. Battle response. During a battle, whether or not there are any response cards face up, the inactive side may attempt to respond if they have cards remaining in Feint allowed. So I guess I just get to play this. So the French do not have a reaction card. So we fire first, double strength before any column shifts, unless enemy also ambushes. So we're going to use this ambush card right here. So as you can see, it says play before any battle in wilderness. What I already read, fire first, double strength before any column shifts, unless enemy also ambushes. So we have to look at the combat strength of all our units and look for shifts due to terrain, etc. So basically, here's our results table. So we will get a plus for the tactics rating, which is a 1 for Johnson. None of these other ones will apply. So that's a pretty easy battle to figure out. So we have to add up the combat strength, and then they get to double it. So we have 1, 2, 4, 6, which will get doubled to 12 for the first attack. And here's that. And we're going to get a +1 for our leader. So let me just stick this in here. We'll roll our red die, and we get a 4. So the 4 becomes a 5. And the 5 in the 12 column is 3. So 3 is step loss inflicted on enemy. So we'll take 1 from the Marines, and we will eliminate Marin here. So he will be eliminated because he took 2 step losses. I think that's allowed. I need to confirm that. I need to check and see if I have to take both from the drilled unit. Yep. Half have to be from the drilled unit. So Marin gets reduced, and he'll have to retreat. And our Marine unit is removed. All right, so that would also remove this. And these guys would take ownership of that hex. And what I will do is I'll put Johnson in there, and I'll move these units to the Johnson box. And that would complete that phase for the British. And we will now we would go back to the French, and the British would take a second card here and put that in the B slot because we used both, and their cards remaining would actually go down to 4. So the French have an extra card, but the British obviously did some damage there in that turn. So that's going to do it. I hope I gave you a good enough idea of how this works. Very straightforward. The game itself is not overly complicated, so I think the rules are only like 15 pages long or something. So it's a very straightforward game, card-driven game. The CDG Solo System fits it really well and works really well with it. So if you do have the game, you can actually do a print and play, I think, for free. If you go to the GMT website, you can print the CDG Solo System for this one. And if you have CDG Solo 1, then all you really need is the play sheet because you have all the components already. So that's going to do it. As I said, please consider liking, sharing, subscribing, etc. As I always ask. I do appreciate that stuff. But either way, thank you for watching. Until next time, my name's Joe. This has been Hexed Encountered, and as always, happy gaming.